Welcome to Means of Grace, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church.
Welcome to the Means of Grace podcast. I am Kim Ingram, your host. Today's podcast is another in the series where we are highlighting particular aspects and ministries of each of the 8 districts in Western North Carolina. In this episode, we are focusing on the Catawba Valley District. Reverend David Christy is the district superintendent, and we are highlighting new partnerships that have recently formed. Our episode will feature 2 conversations. Each of them is with clergy and lay leaders of churches that are partnering together for ministry in a new way. Each of the partnerships shares pastoral leadership, but it is different than the traditional charge model, where 2 or more churches share a pastor on a charge. I am reminded of these words from Job. My heart is indeed like wine that has no vent. Like new wineskins, it is ready to burst. It is clear that these leaders are excited about the new wineskins, and I think you'll be inspired by their stories and enthusiasm. Thank you all for being with us today. I'm excited to have this conversation with folks from the Catawba Valley District. David, you are a new grandfather. Tell us about that before we get into the conversation.
That is by far the most important thing. Her name is Addie Grace Christy. She is 20 inches long, 7 pounds, 4 inches of love.
And maybe likes Pam better.
Probably. Yeah, everybody does. Exactly.
Well, we're super excited for you and celebrate that with you and with Luke and with Kelly. So thank you for sharing that. Now, you've been a DS for about a year and wanted just to start, since the conversation is with the Catawba Valley District, thought we'd just start with a conversation about how it's been going. What is something that surprised you that as a DS that maybe you didn't realize when you were serving in the local church, or a story you might want to tell us?
Okay. Well, first of all, it really is exciting. And of course, the Catawba Valley is the most wonderful district in the whole wide world. And the churches and the clergy really are very creative. I've been amazed at I started this appointment and pandemic time. So, but I've been amazed at the creativity of the churches and the clergy as they've worked together. And I think the thing that I did not appreciate probably when I was serving in local church was the amazing connection we have. We talk about that all the time, but and we'll talk about it more. That's one of the reasons we're doing this today. I think I didn't realize the partnerships that are so available to us, from everything from church legacy to the foundation to Wesley community development, congregational development, and the Vitality Associate here and in all our districts. Frederick Bowman does that here. David Hamlin with missional engagement. And of course, the district administrators run everything. Jen Alexander keeps me straight and shows us all what to do. But it really is, we have a great gift in this connection, and I appreciate it way more than I ever have before.
Well, that's exciting. It's fun to be a part of a team and to do stuff together as a team. So we're doing these podcasts with each of the districts to help people learn a little bit more about the district and the ministries of the districts. And so I wonder if you can help our listeners understand the context of the Catawba Valley District. Help us learn a little bit about Catawba Valley District.
Absolutely. The Catawba Valley is 150 of the finest churches you'll ever meet. Over 5 counties. There's Gaston County, Cleveland County, Lincoln County, Catawba County, and Burke County. I got them. 5 counties, which is 35 dog counties. They are all size churches, all kinds of folks here. And it really is a great cross section of human beings and of God doing really cool stuff amongst us.
And you're doing a number of things with partnerships across the Catawba Valley District. So today we have guests with us that are representing a partnership between churches that you envisioned in the Catawba Valley District. And I wonder if there were something that predicated the need for these partnerships. What is it that has helped you begin thinking about how to partner churches together?
Well, some of it, as we mentioned earlier, is this great connection. And we have a connection just with each other, with the churches around us. And then the more pressing need that we faced this past year was a clergy shortage. And, I'm not real good at hiding things. So we just went and talked about it with churches and said, I'm not sure what to do. And God bless the folks at First Hickory and on the Northbrook charge who were willing to talk through that with me. And we realized that here was a partnership where we could use the gifts of First Hickory and the gifts of Reeps Grove and Macedonia churches to sort of work together for a year and just see what happens with continual check-ins and make sure that we're doing the best that we can. But I'm so grateful for their willingness to engage in this kind of shared ministry together with clergy serving both churches, or all three churches.
So, David, you talked about these folks, and we have three other people who are joining us on the podcast today. I wonder if you would introduce them to us.
I would be happy to, because I am indebted to each of them and I am grateful for them. Bebe Leitch is the Staff-Parish Relations Chair at First United Methodist Church in Hickory, and Melissa Peeler is the Pastor-Parish Relations Chair for the Northbrook Charge, which is Reeps Grove and Macedonia United Methodist Churches. And Jennifer Forrester is one of the clergy persons at First United Methodist Church Hickory, who is also for this year serving the Northbrook charge on a rotational basis with her fellow clergy mates. And they're all wonderful. Thank y'all very much for what you're doing.
So it just started July 1st. So we're only just over a month into this particular partnership. And I want to start, if we could, talking to Jennifer and Bebe, who represent First United Methodist Church in Hickory. So David approached you all about a possibility. And I wonder kind of what you thought when he made the suggestion and kind of how it's been going since then. Jennifer, you want to start?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. And I think when I first heard that this was a possibility, I was very excited about the possibility. We had actually been working and talking with a couple other small churches in Hickory, and Pastor Paul and Troy and myself had conversations before about if there was ever a need for that, that would be something that we would absolutely be willing to do. Part of what I love and what we all love about the Methodist Church is the connectional part. And because we have resources and there's multiple clergy at First, why not be able to partner with other churches and just be in ministry with them, not in trying to make them First United Methodist Church Hickory churches, but just meeting them where they are in ministry and being in ministry with them and being their pastors and walking alongside them. So we were very excited at the opportunity.
So Jennifer, it sounds like there was an openness on the part of the clergy team to expand kind of your leadership and your breadth of experience. Bebe, as they approached you about it, what did you think?
I thought it was a great opportunity for our church and with our ministry staff who were already doing so much, or they are already doing so much in our community. So they're reaching out to larger audience. There were several on our Staff-Parish committee that were not as open to the idea. We had a lot of discussion and with our ministers who, at the end, we were all in favor of it and thought it was a great partnership. And I've checked with them on a regular basis, and they are doing great. They don't look worn out on Sunday mornings when they come to our church. All the other things they're doing, because they have not neglected anything at our church. They are continuing to do their ministry. We haven't seen a glitch in anything that they're doing. So we are all very excited about the partnership, all of us on Staff-Parish. We just want to make sure that they're okay, that our ministers are okay.
Well, that's neat that you were able to get people to come around it and to see kind of a broader vision. Melissa, sometimes it's the smaller churches that feel like or are concerned that they might be the ones that get neglected in this kind of partnership. You are the Staff-Parish Committee chair of two churches on a charge. And so when they approached you about this idea, I wonder how your churches responded.
For the most part, everybody was positive and at least willing to give it a try. Like First Hickory, we had maybe one or two that were a little skeptical and not quite sure at the beginning. But David did a great job at the beginning when he approached me and our community at large of making sure that we knew this wasn't a larger church taking over, that we were still our own churches and that they were going to meet our needs, and not try to come in and just make us a substation of them. That's not the word I want to use, but, just to be a smaller church kind of indebted to them. So he did a great job with that. I guess my biggest concern, I think, was, my thought was, and I know Hickory's not a big city like Charlotte, but it was like this, are these pastors who are used to a city church, how are they going to relate to a rural community and to the needs of our church? But I tell you, from the first phone call I had with the three of them and the first in-person meeting, that fear went away immediately. They knowing their backstories and the way they have approached and met us, they're really good with that. They know what a small church, what a rural church needs.
So, Melissa, we didn't actually say that. Where are your churches located?
It's the Vale area. It's in Lincoln County.
Okay.
Kind of the western part of Lincoln County.
So both the churches are in Lincoln County.
Yes.
And so it sounds like David presented a vision or had a vision as he approached you all, even if it was out of a kind of a crisis or a need that he was trying to solve. It was enough of a vision that you all and your committees were able to get around it. David, I wonder, kind of as you communicated that vision, what did you communicate beyond just the pastors being in and out of both churches?
Well, just that this really is a tangible part of our connection, that First Hickory can learn a lot from the Northbrook charge, and the Northbrook charge can learn a lot from First Hickory. And I believe it goes even beyond the pastors, because the real key, of course, in the church is the laity. And the laity in both churches have such unique gifts. I know a couple of weeks ago, I was in Hickory, and Troy, one of the pastors, was talking about a mission need in Hickory. And somebody in one of the churches in Northbrook, I don't even remember the particulars, but builds, crafts, whatever the mission need was in Hickory, it was beds. And he's like, that's a God thing, how those two things came together. And it really is. When we can work together, the body of Christ is so much stronger. And folks heard that and they got excited about that, which was really neat to see.
Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That was the beds for foster children. We partner with Fostering Hope Catawba. And so there's children and families that need beds when they are called to receive a child. And so we're working to try to get that connection made so we can have beds to offer. So
yeah, what a great partnership. And as David said, a way that the Holy Spirit just seemed to provide the need at the time, even through the two churches that were involved in the three churches that were involved in the conversation. So that's pretty cool. Melissa or Bebe, I wonder if either of you has an idea about how the laity might continue to, it may be that your churches aren't close enough that you're going to do fellowship things together, but I know you all recently visited with each other. How can you support each other and maybe other laity in the churches support one another?
Yeah, we really haven't had a good opportunity to get together with the two committees, but it is something I'd like to do. I know with this COVID going on, that's made it harder to forge a connection that we'd really like to do. But, that was one of the things I was excited about, was to maybe, because we do have some youth in our church, but it's hard to run a youth program, with the size of our church. And, that was something I was hoping one thing we could get together with the youth. And I know we've talked to the three pastors about needing a confirmation class, and they considered, maybe joining that with the confirmation. So off the top of my head, I can't name a lot of specific things, but, I think there is some good things we could get together with and take advantage of the two churches and the two diverse thoughts. And, like I said, just meeting from both angles and forging that connection.
Those are great examples of possibilities. Yeah.
And we have a new youth director who's doing a fabulous job, who just graduated from Appalachian. I think you all know John very well. And I just took a note because I think that's a great suggestion, that we can get the youth groups together. That's a hard ministry when you don't have a person that can really take over it. But I've got to give you an example. And I wasn't going to mention, but since you mentioned Troy's name, we have a member of our church who grew up at Macedonia. Melissa, do you know Pam Huss?
I met her a couple Sundays ago because she has worshiped with us a couple times, and so I got to meet her thinking.
I think she's going most Sundays to Macedonia, and she loved being home in her church for her family worship. But she told me that Troy was preaching one Sunday morning and was Troy's just, Paul, Jennifer, Troy, they're all outstanding. Troy, I've known him for 40 years, but he's a new minister and has really evolved through the years. But after the service, one of your congregation members came up to him and said, Pastor Troy, thank you so much for filling in and being our interim ministry. He said, oh, no, we are your ministers. And that just really touched me. And, and then I talked to Paul yesterday, and Paul is planning on visiting every member of the two churches. And he will do that because he does that with our church. And he will hear all their needs, and my guess is that all three of them will fulfill those needs. So I just give me cold chills when I talk about it. So
thank you both, Bebe and Melissa, for your vision there. Jennifer, speaking from the perspective of the clergy leaders, how are you all sharing this leadership and doing a preaching rotation and the other kinds of needs? How do you all work that out?
So we have worked out a rotation that for the most part works really well. We preach at first, and then we preach at the Northbrook charge, and then we don't preach a week. And so it gives us a regular rotation of who is there so we can get to know folks there better and connect with them better. So, it's hard in planning to try to figure out what's going to be best for everybody and making sure that we're not absent at first, but we're also present at Northbrook. So we found the rotation to work really well. So there's a consistency and people can start to know what to expect. We've been communicating with some of the folks there so they know who's going to be there when and who's preaching what. And it's worked out really well. They've been very eager to communicate with us and us with them. I do have a really good story for you all. I don't know if you can use it for the podcast or not, but we had a church member who was very apprehensive and concerned about this partnership, vocalized it in a lot of different places. He spent 30 minutes on the phone with me this morning, and he came and worshiped down at one of the churches with me a couple of weeks ago. And this morning he called me just to tell me how humbled he was by the whole experience. He said some of his apprehension was selfish. Some of it was out of concern for Paul and Troy and myself and just worrying that we were spreading ourselves too thin. But he came and worshiped down at one of the churches there with me a couple Sundays ago. And he said he was so humbled by the kindness that he was shown, how welcoming everybody there was, and to see one of what he would say his pastors in a different worship environment and ministering to other people, and how that congregation was embracing me and embracing us. He said, this is a God thing. God is in this. And I really just need to tell everybody that I talked to before, they should go and worship down there, that the people there are so kind and God is in that place. So I think there's way more good to come that we can't even foresee yet. I definitely agree that God is in this.
Well, it would be fun to touch base with you all again in about 6 or 9 months and see what you have discovered that you can do in ministry together. And it does sound like it'll be fun for you to develop friendships and relationships among the different congregations. Is there anything else that you want to share as we close this podcast?
And David, I don't know if you can use this one. You may want to edit it, but I have an Addie Grace granddaughter.
Do you really?
So, and then she's the one we're taking to see the Van Gogh exhibit today. So,
wow.
Way to go.
That's awesome.
It is, awesome. Isn't it?
Troy and Mary had their new grandbaby yesterday afternoon. Troy's daughter Anna delivered in Mississippi yesterday afternoon, a healthy baby girl.
Wow.
Great.
In the
Babies
water.
Everywhere.
One of our other DSs has a granddaughter that's going to be born next week. They moved it from this week to next week. But it's a sign of hope and for our future. Mm-hmm. That's very cool.
Well, thank you all for inviting us to put in our 10 cents worth or whatever you want to say, but it's been a real great experience. And I know, Melissa, from what you said, I couldn't have imagined it being any better. This whole transition, how everyone has embraced it and been positive about it. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us, for all the Northbrook Charge and others.
Well, I personally had good hopes for it, and it's even exceeded my expectations. So, and just to tag along, there was some worry too, of getting 3 pastors from another church and wondering, are they going to have the energy for ours as well? So, and I hope together as the 2 churches, that's something we can always work with the 3 of them to make sure that we're not putting too much demands on them, and that we make sure they do take care of their personal time and things like that. Right. But one thing I was going to add too, again, if you can work this in or not, they endeared themselves to our congregation, I think from week 1. I think even like the first week they were there, we had some people in the hospital and they were visiting them. They've been visiting in the homes every week since they've been here. And that's always been something that's been near and dear to the people in our church. And I tell you, they have been really great about that. And that's been very appreciated.
And I think, Jennifer, y'all are doing like Tuesdays as a day down there. Is that right? And trying to do visitation all the time, but intentional days on Tuesdays?
That is correct. Whoever's going to be there the coming Sunday, that Tuesday before, we spend the day there. And so typically in the morning we're in the office, and then in the afternoon we go out and do visit. And that's been going great. I'm always amazed whenever we think that we're going to help others in some way, how really we are the ones that are blessed. And I can't speak for Paul and Troy, but I have been blessed by the folks at both of those congregations, visiting them in their homes and worshiping with them. And they are a blessing. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity.
Well, I really appreciate you all taking your time to share your story with us today, and especially for a vision or a model for how churches can continue to be in partnership with one another and find new ways. We may or may not continue to have a clergy shortage, but it shouldn't be the thing that drives these kind of partnerships, because clearly it is a blessing to all of those that are involved. So thank you all for being part of this conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. And thank you, David, and Bebe and Melissa. Thank you too so much, because without you two, this wouldn't have been possible at all. So thank you.
I hope we can visit with David, Bebe, Jennifer, and Melissa again in a few months to see how the partnership has continued to strengthen and grow. You'll hear the same enthusiasm in this second conversation with the leaders from First United Methodist Church in Bessemer City and Bethesda United Methodist Church. Welcome. So in our second conversation today, we're talking about another partnership in the Catawba Valley District. And David, I wonder if you would tell us about your vision for this particular partnership and then introduce us to our friends on the podcast today.
I would be happy to. Thank you. So this is a partnership between 2 different churches, First United Methodist Church in Bessemer City and Bethesda United Methodist Church in where is Bethesda? Gastonia, Cramerton, heading that way. It's across from the Waffle House, and that's all anybody really needs to know. But anyway, this came out of really during the appointment season, trying to figure out ways to bring churches together, trying to be sure that each church had a clergy person. And instead of trying to create something that wasn't there, to start thinking about what do we have. And I knew that Tripp had just finished schooling and finished his seminary, and First Bessemer City had been a part of a partnership and was sort of ready to take a next step. And so Bethesda had been a part of a group of Belmont area churches that met in January of this year, thinking about what can we do differently as a church to represent Christ in our community? And so it sort of formed itself. And as we talked with the churches, nobody got mad and spit or anything. They were actually excited about it. So we turned them loose, and I think it's working pretty well. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I would like to present to you now, in the Miami Dolphins mask, Reverend Tripp Hord. And next to him is the Pastor-Parish Relations Chair for First Bessemer City, Phyllis Wright-Herman, and next to her is Lori Sutton, who is the Pastor-Parish Relations Chair for Bethesda United Methodist. Woo! Yay, you three!
Now, all of our podcast listeners have been blessed to hear how David Christy introduces people when you get to meet them for the first time. And we really appreciate you all being here with us. We do celebrate with Tripp his recent graduation from seminary. And David, it just sounds like what you're doing is taking the resources you already have in the district and then finding ways to use them to implement, to provide leadership and service for the kingdom by utilizing the resources that you already have identified. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about how you've done that and how it's working out. Tripp, you've been the pastor at First United Methodist Church in Bessemer City, that's on the west side of Gastonia, Gaston County, for several years now. And you all had a partnership with First United Methodist Church of Gastonia, and it happens that David was the pastor of that church at the time. And it's similar to the conversation we just had around a larger church partnering with a smaller church. And I wonder if you would just start by telling us, Tripp, a little bit about how that worked as far as how it could inform your understanding and experience of churches partnering with one another. How long has that partnership been? What was the nature of it? And maybe what, as a clergy leader, did you learn or experience from it?
Well, I think we're currently in the 6th year of the partnership, and it's still ongoing. So we'll go through 2022, and the hopes are it will continue to be ongoing. I think one of the great things about the partnership was I was still young. I had just started seminary, and David, what we took from the initial partnership that we had with First Methodist in Gastonia, one is it's still ongoing. We'll continue through June of 2022, and my hopes are we continue to have that partnership. We've seen growth financially in Bessemer City. I'm not sure how that's happened, other than I feel like sometimes Bessemer City is like, hey, we've had a minister for 6 years, and so there seems to be some buy-in that, there's some stability right now with the partnership, so they feel really good about that financially. Also, I had the opportunity for 4 or 5 years with David being a senior pastor in Gastonia and me being young in my ministry. He came over every Wednesday and took me to lunch. So that was nice. But what we did was we talked about our upcoming sermons that week. So that was very helpful for me being young in the ministry for that help. And I think Phyllis is going to talk about this later. It really gave us an opportunity to grow, being a fairly older church, an opportunity to grow our senior membership through some trips by using the buses at First Methodist. So that was one of the things that jumped out right quick as to some of the benefits that we've had. And it's been ongoing, and I'll let her share, if you want to let her go ahead and share some of those opportunities that we've witnessed so far.
Yeah, Phyllis, that would be great. As a layperson and Staff-Parish Relations Chair at First Bessemer City, tell us about how you've observed and experienced the partnership.
Well, we were very thrilled to have Tripp be given or assigned to our church, because we had several pastors, just because I think we're a good training ground. We have a strong congregation. I think everyone's very open-minded and willing, some of our strengths that we bring. And so we were thrilled to have an opportunity to have a pastor with us to help us grow and get centered and build First United Methodist Church in Bessemer City through Tripp, building ourselves in the congregation and building our relationship with him. And then through that, the blessings we received through working with Gastonia, First United Methodist in Gastonia, were all the resources. We are an older church, but a small church, and we have the age gap is great. And then in the middle, where you might have your more youthful, energetic doers, they're very limited. So being able to partner with First United Methodist of Gastonia, we were able to have access to their transportation and using their buses. We were able to establish a Bessemer City Travelers. BC Travelers.
Before computers.
Right. And we had, so that was because we didn't have a van ourselves. So we had that. We have access to materials, extra materials, be it music or Bible study materials. That was great. Also, the support, knowing that Tripp had someone to go to, and if anyone in the church needed it, we had a resource that we could share, and the youth. That's right, Tripp. Being able to participate with the few youth that we have, because everyone's either 80 or they are maybe a few youth. We can do, trunk or treat. We got to participate in a lot of the youth programs with the other church. So those are some of the blessings that we've received, and in addition to some financial relationships that help the burden of our small church. And that's part of what helps us partner with Bethesda, is actually playing a lot of that forward.
And I will say part of that partnership was, right now, Bessemer City allows Avery, who is an associate at Gastonia, to live in the parsonage. So it's saving First United Methodist in Gastonia a little money because she's able to live there. And so that's kind of been the trade-off. So it's worked well for them as well.
So that's great, Tripp. It wasn't just one-sided, that there were benefits and resources that were available from each church to the other church. And it sounds like it was such a positive experience that then the opportunity arose for you all to then partner with Bethesda and use some of the experiences you had. Yeah, Phyllis, you wanted to say something else?
I did about that. When we were approached to share Tripp, it was a very easy decision to make because of where we had been up to that point, and knowing the benefits we received, that we were hoping that, well, we all said yes. Clearly, we all said yes, and we're very excited about it. But everything we talked about made that decision easier.
That's great. So, Lori, I want to turn to you, because the partnering opportunity with First Bessemer City is new for you all. I think you all just started it this summer. So tell us a little bit, if you will, about what the experience looks like from your church's perspective and what your kind of vision for it is.
Well, this is all new to us. We're only a month and a half in, so we're not really sure. We didn't realize that all these resources are available, and now we do, and we'll make sure to look into some of that. But we're looking forward to the partnership and being able to share with Bessemer City. And like tonight, First United, a group from First United is coming over here, and they're bringing youth and children, and we're having dinner, and we're packing book bags. So we're really excited about that, to be able to have that time and get to know some folks and do that.
Yeah, that is really neat, because you all are all in the same county. And Gaston County is not so big that you don't run into each other and feel like you're kind of part of a common area. And so not only will it sounds like develop relationships among the two churches, but allows you to be in mission and ministry together in the community. So that seems like an exciting opportunity.
It does. We do have some missions that we do here in our church, and we are always looking for more opportunities. So it's nice to be able to partner with other churches and join in with them on any mission opportunities that they have. One thing that we've done here at Bethesda for, I believe, 20 years now, on Thanksgiving Day, we provide meals for anyone who wants one. We deliver, we do carryouts. People can, not last year, but people can usually come in and have a seat and have lunch with us. And it is the highlight of the year for a lot of people. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful time to be able to provide such a blessing on the day of Thanksgiving.
Well, what she's talking about is, how would that look if the Thanksgiving meal was between both the churches got together? So if Bessemer City came over and helped serve, take some meals back to Bessemer City, both churches are serving two communities on each end of the county. So, how neat would that look if these two churches come together and work on that? And how would it look if we do other events like the Oktoberfest here, maybe at Christmas time? How do we do Bible studies together. I think there's a huge way that we can grow this between the two churches, and I look forward to how that might look down the road.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. And like we said, because it's new, you're just getting some of this started. But to hear your enthusiasm and to have a vision for what some of the ways that you all can be in ministry together. And David, I wonder if you would talk for a minute about how this partnership looks a little bit different than just a 2-point charge. Well, what distinguishes it?
Yeah, I think both churches, first of all, they are on opposite ends of the county. And I think that each church has their unique own personality and their own outreach in the community. But I think going into it, thinking of it as a partnership more so than, oh, this is just a way for us to afford a full-time pastor. I mean, these churches, it's a totally different starting point to think of it as, what are our gifts that we can share and how can we work together, as opposed to we just share a preacher. No, these churches share resources, and that's their attitude going into it, which is exciting and the great gift of the connection of the United Methodist Church.
So, David, it sounds to me like you've had your imagination sparked, somewhat based on need, and some of it based on kind of opportunity and resources, and how can you share those resources. I wonder how this is sparking your imagination for other things in the district that might be ahead.
Yeah, I think it does spark a lot of thought, because even as we make appointments, but just thinking about partnerships more than anything else, and thinking about, instead of sort of trying to recreate the wheel, let's look at what we have and how can we use what we have to God's glory by working together. In this case, it was an opportunity where it could save each church a little bit of money, but yet provide even greater ministry. And I think there are opportunities out there for all of us as again, we use the resources we already have of this great connection and think about, instead of competing with each other, how can we work together to build the kingdom?
And it seems you don't have to wait until the district superintendent suggests a partnership would be a good idea, that we have a lot of churches on 2- and 3-point charges that, as they're listening to this, could go ahead and just rethink, what does it mean to be to be partners and in mission together, sharing resources, gifts, ideas, and leadership. Tripp, I wonder if you have any advice for clergy leaders as they were to approach this idea with their congregations.
I would just say be open. We've become so absorbed with how ministry has worked for 100 years. The Methodist Church, I think, is always trying to figure out what's that next thing as to how we can move forward. And I think it's just trying new things. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. One of the things I was just sitting here contemplating was, how would it look, with this COVID, we're seeing more numbers, people watching us online, than we are actually having live people in church. So how would it look if one of these two churches became, say, the 11 o'clock service and one the 9:45 like we're doing now, but it be an interactive service where both churches, say, I would preach at one church every other week, but how would it be if both churches could interact the service together, to where prayer's going on at Bethesda and something else is, but it's all working together under one service at that time. I don't know how it looks, but I think that's just doing something different, I think, is what I'd encourage everybody to do.
Yeah, Tripp, that is so helpful, because we are in a new day, not only post-COVID, but kind of a new time in Christianity, and we're going to have to think outside of the box in order to reach people for Christ and further the kingdom. So I love your enthusiasm and your ideas and your willingness just to experiment and try some new things.
I would like to mention that First United Methodist of Bessemer City's relationship with Bethesda in sharing Tripp is in its infancy. And we're really looking forward to what we can do together and the changes that we will see in each of our churches together.
Yeah, it'll be fun to develop those new relationships and to discover new gifts and to figure some of that out together.
I think at Bethesda, we are looking forward to this partnership, as well as being able to learn all the resources that can help us, partner in ministry, in mission work. And we are all very excited to see where we're going in the next year or so.
Well, I think your enthusiasm is contagious, and we really appreciate you all being with us today for this conversation and for trying a new thing and for sharing that. And hopefully we can revisit in a year or so as you have gotten to know each other and establish this partnership more fully and see where it's gone and what you've learned from it. Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
These conversations really reminded me of the value of sharing resources and leadership. Not only will new friendships and relationships form from these partnerships, but they will learn from each other and discover ways to be in ministry together. One of the hallmarks of being United Methodist is the ways that we are connected with each other. This conversation affirmed the value of the connection and the openness churches and leaders have toward trying something new. Thank you for joining us for the conversation with the Catawba Valley District. I hope it encourages you to try an experiment or consider a new partnership. God is always doing a new thing.
Thank you for listening to Means of Grace, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church. We hope you enjoy listening to these podcasts and use them as a way to stay connected to our community. Remember to subscribe to Means of Grace for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us an honest rating and a review. It helps others find this podcast. Follow the WNCC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WNCCUMC. Once again, that's at WNCCUMC. Means of Grace is produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church and Andy Go of Gojo Studios.